Welcome to Apex Hours, everyone. The series will be on OmniStudio. This is the first session of the series. That will be an intro to OmniStudio. So you know what are the high-level components before you deep dive into the other areas. And my name is Georgi. So let's get started. First, a forward-looking statement. Please make your purchasing decisions based on what's generally available in the product today, not based on what's on the roadmap. In this series, we'll really be focusing on just what's available in the product today, but please keep this in mind as you watch. So a quick agenda before we dive into the content. I'll quickly introduce myself so you know who I am, why I'm presenting on this for you. We'll do an introduction of Vlocity. OmniStudio and Industry Cloud came out of the Vlocity acquisition about 2 years ago. We'll explain what is OmniStudio, what is Industry Cloud, give you some context there. Then we'll go through what is this series about, what will we be covering, what are the different sections that will be, or sessions that will be covered. We'll do a brief overview of the OmniStudio modules, so you can understand at a high level what they are before going through the deep dive sessions, and finally go through resources. So the idea is after this session, you'll have a basic understanding of what OmniStudio is, and you'll know what to expect out of this series. So to introduce myself in a bit more detail, my name is Georgi Savelyev. I'm currently a senior program architect focused on communications cloud at Salesforce. I joined via the Vlocity acquisition about 2 years ago, and previous to that, I joined Vlocity about 2 years before that. So about 4.5 years with Salesforce/Vlocity now. I'm a certified technical architect, or a CTA. I have quite a few Salesforce certificates. I've been in the ecosystem for about 7 years and have done 8 major communication cloud implementations. So quite some experience with Vlocity with communications cloud, which includes OmniStudio, and that's why I'm here talking to you today. Beyond that, I participate in the community quite a bit. I love doing sessions like this for Apex Hours and other community groups. I also co-founded the Benelux CTA study group and Moscow developer user group. All right, so let's dive in. So to give some context on Vlocity, Industry Cloud, and OmniStudio, let me walk you through this. So this slide is showing the different industry clouds that are available as part of Salesforce Industries today. Here on the right-hand side, you'll notice that we have 12 different industries here, and I have a few of them circled. So the ones with the blue circles here are the ones that were formerly part of Vlocity. And some of these industries were completely former Vlocity industry clouds. Some of these were existing industry clouds that were extended with some of the Vlocity capabilities. So for example, communications cloud, the one that the industry that I'm focused on, this was completely a former Vlocity industry cloud, whereas health or financial services clouds, these were existing clouds that were extended a bit based on some of the Vlocity capabilities. I also have in green check marks here the various industry clouds where OmniStudio is GA as of today, July 2022. Do keep in mind this may change in the future, so just check with your AE, check through the marketing materials to see if this is still accurate whenever you watch the session. But the general idea behind Vlocity or industry clouds is Vlocity was founded back in 2014, 2015. The idea was to extend the horizontal capabilities that the Salesforce platform gives us with industry-specific vertical applications for these specific industries. So for example, if we talk about communications cloud, which is what allows telcos or communication providers sell services and products to their end customers, they would need the core Salesforce capabilities plus a industry data model, plus all of the features that would be needed for the sales and service process for a communications company, for example, CPQ, order management, that sort of thing. So communications cloud brings all of these things together on the Salesforce platform, and similar for the other clouds as well. And then Vlocity was acquired by Salesforce in 2020. As part of that, these 6 industry applications were extended with Vlocity functionality, and more of them are being extended with the OmniStudio functionality that used to be part of Vlocity as well. So hopefully that gives you a bit of context on what exactly industry cloud is and what this whole Vlocity thing is. To dive a little bit deeper into that, I keep mentioning industry cloud, OmniStudio, what is the connection between these or what's different between them? So this is a solution map. There are different solution maps for the different industry clouds. Here we'll talk about communications cloud because this is where I specialize. You can consider the other industry clouds would be quite similar to this, but maybe some of the boxes would be changed to different words. So let's go through this step by step. If we look at the bottom here, Customer 360, Sales Cloud, Service Cloud, this is the core Salesforce platform where Customer 360 is really the core of the platform. There's Sales Cloud, which is what Salesforce originally started with, and then Service Cloud, which came shortly after. These are the horizontal platform and horizontal applications that are not industry specific that all of the industry clouds build off of as a foundation. Then here in orange, we have the actual industry cloud piece of it. So at the bottom left, we have the industry data model. The idea behind this is that a communications provider would need to represent things in their data model that aren't available in the core application. So the way you sell and represent a customer in a telecommunications sense is different than how you'd represent a customer in financial services or health or whatever, and the industry data model brings that industry lens in and extends various objects and introduces new objects to meet that industry's use case. So the data model is one core component here. The next component is what I have highlighted in blue here. This was formerly called the Vlocity Digital Interaction Platform or Industry Interaction Platform or OmniStudio. OmniStudio is obviously today's focus. For OmniStudio, there are different components here. There's OmniScripts, FlexCards, DataRaptors, integration procedures, and Industry DX. And I'll explain what are all of these in just a moment. But at a high level, it's a way to build employee and customer facing UIs and integrations with other systems to make the whole business process work end to end. And the last piece of industry clouds is the different functional modules that are available, which is in the middle piece here. So there's Enterprise Product Catalog or EPC, CPQ, Configure Price Quote, Order Management, OM. We won't have time to deep dive into all of these, but there are a few other sessions on Apex Hours and other places that we'll link through in the description if you're interested in learning more. But think of these as additional functionalities that are common for that industry that help fulfill that industry's sales service or other business requirements. And then the rest of this diagram is how you make it work end to end. So at the bottom here, we have MuleSoft to connect to other systems. On the left here, we have Marketing Cloud to do marketing to our customers to make them aware of our products. Commerce and Sites to have self-service for e-commerce or sales and service. Our great partner ecosystem that helps us deliver these implementations end to end. We won't really be focusing on those sections here. Really, today's focus will be on blue here. But hopefully this gives you a perspective of, where does OmniStudio fit inside of Industry Cloud? How does it fit in all together? And then what's the difference between Industry Cloud and OmniStudio itself? So this series will have 11 sessions. I have them all highlighted here. Today's session will be the intro, just to give you a high-level overview. So in case you don't have time to see the whole series, at least you'll have a high-level understanding of what OmniStudio is. And then the future sessions will deep dive into specific topics. So the next ones will be on FlexCards. We have it split into 2 sessions. The idea is that for each of these sessions to be about 30, 45 minutes, and they'll cover a mix of theory or slides and hands-on demo. So you can see, you can understand what you're about to see and then see how it's actually configured and how it works in the system. So next 2 sessions will be FlexCards. Then similarly, OmniScript will have a basic and advanced session. DataRaptor that will be covered in 1 session. Integration procedures split in 2 sessions. Then IDX, Industry DX, Workbench and CLI, OmniOut, and OmniStudio best practices. So if you're watching this video as it was initially released, these additional sessions will be released over the next roughly month or two. If you're watching this in the future, then you can go ahead and skip to whatever sessions you're most interested in. But if you're new to OmniStudio, I would recommend just watching this whole series in order. You'll get the most of it as they'll kind of build step by step in terms of different concepts that you'll see in each video. And we'll have a lot of great speakers, some of them that have been on Apex Hours before, some of them that are new. So I really hope that you'll enjoy the series. Okay, so back to OmniStudio itself. So the idea of OmniStudio is to build rich digital employee or customer-facing experiences with the different tools that are available: OmniScript, FlexCards, integration procedures, DataRaptor. The general idea is that these tools are very declarative, very admin friendly. They can be done without code entirely, or you can extend them with code as you need. You can create customer interactions. Well, you can connect those customer interactions with different applications, whether it's Salesforce, whether it's other downstream systems like another billing platform, whatever platforms that you have in mind. You can simplify the agent and customer experience with process libraries that there are a few reference OmniScripts and so on available that you can start tweaking to your use cases. And then all of this is available with drag and drop designers, so you can build and extend it in an easy way. And then on the right-hand side here, we have the OmniScript designer, just to give you a flavor of what this looks like from an admin experience. So this isn't what the customer or employee would see from their side. This is what your OmniScript developers would see. And then here we have the series of steps that are happening inside of the OmniScript. And we can see here, this is one of the UI steps. And we can see that, there's a picture of a boat, there's some text here. So it's very visual. As a developer, you'll be able to see it each time. So very much visual. And all of these different things are drag and drop. So if we look at a more holistic picture, here are all of the OmniStudio components. So I'll just very quickly touch on each of these, and then we'll go through them in more detail. So we have OmniScript. This is for guided interactions. This is really the UI front end piece of it. We have FlexCards. These are customer-centric, employee-centric UI components that you can expose in various places. Again, front end UI focused. We have DataRaptor. This is for interacting with data, extracting data from Salesforce into Salesforce, loading it into Salesforce, or transforming data from different payloads one to another. This is backend. We have integration procedures. You can think of this as a declarative version of Apex, basically a way to declaratively build business logic. This is backend. And then we have these other components as well. So we have the interaction console. This is how we can take these UI components that we built over here and expose them to our users. We have Omni Analytics. This is how you can do performance analytics based on the different tools we saw on the left. We have IDX Workbench. This is how we can deploy the different things that we have on the left, either to our source repository, from our repository into a sandbox or production, or between sandboxes and production. And finally, Project Explorer, a way we can group these different pieces of metadata and then deploy them with IDX Workbench. So let's dive a little deeper. Before I deep dive into the specific modules, let me give an example of what this could look like so you can see how these different pieces interact together, because one of the core things is that these different things integrate well with each other and you would use them all together. So hopefully this example will give you a bit of context of how they play together. And then I'll show this once more after we go through the individual modules. So hopefully it will make more sense at that point as well. So let's say here we're playing the persona of a customer who is purchasing internet from their favorite communication service provider, and they're purchasing this Astro internet package. So here I'm the customer coming in. Let's say I'm coming into the communication service provider's Salesforce community site. On that site, we have a guided flow exposed to the customer that will allow them to enter their address. We'll check if the internet service is available for them. We'll show which service options are available. They'll provide their billing information. We'll do a credit check, and then we'll schedule a technician to do an installation. So that's kind of our end-to-end sales process that we want to accomplish as part of this guided flow. And then as we go through this guided flow, we need to interact with a bunch of other systems. We'll have a system to check the availability. We'll actually show the pricing and stuff from Communications Cloud CPQ, which sits in Salesforce. We'll check billing. We'll create the customer's billing profile in Matrix. We'll check the customer's credit in Experian, and we'll schedule a field technician from ServiceMax. So here we're walking through the user through a process. In that process, interacting with quite a few systems. So the different components that would be involved here from OmniStudio is this full 5-step guided flow would be a OmniScript. That OmniScript would then invoke different services from these different systems via integration procedures and DataRaptors. And then inside of the OmniScript itself, we may have some FlexCards in there to create a more user-friendly UI, for example, to show the different internet services that are available based on the availability. The user can interact with it, select one, and then proceed with the process. So hopefully this example gives you some context of how these different pieces fit together. And I think as we go through the next slides, then come back to this, you'll get more context on how it all fits together. So OmniScript, again, this is for guided processes. This can be for a sales process, a service process, or really any business process you have in mind. And this is the OmniStudio analog to Salesforce screen flow. So the idea here is that you can create a engaging digital customer or employee-facing interaction, and it can be completely declarative. You can also extend it with custom LWCs or code as you like as well. So the idea is that these would generally be dynamic, multi-step business forms. You have different steps in there. You can have conditions between each of the steps. Within each step, each of the components in there, you can have conditions on them as well to conditionally show or hide them. Put in your business logic as you need. There are a lot of different elements involved, 50 plus pre-configured elements, and then you can extend this with custom LWCs if you have some complex requirement that doesn't fit into any of the out-of-box ones. And if you need additional UI components, you can create those with FlexCards that are, again, declarative. The execution here is generally client-side, where you can have different conditions and so on. That would all be client-side. It supports branching and execution of the different things as well. There's data integration via DataRaptor integration procedures that are other OmniStudio components for interacting with Salesforce or other systems. And then you can also invoke REST or SOAP APIs, Apex classes and methods as well. All of this is very visual. So you can see on the right-hand side here, this is another screenshot of the OmniScript designer. Here we can see a step and then the different components here. You just drag and drop from the right-hand side, which is the available list of components, into here. You can resize the different components. So here we're showing 2 fields side by side. It's very visual, very admin friendly. And you can see kind of what it looks like as you're building it without having to constantly previewing it to sense what it would look like. And finally, one of the coolest things and one of the things that differentiates this significantly from Salesforce Flow is something called OmniOut. So OmniOut lets you deploy your OmniScript into a different channel. So the idea is OmniScript out of box can be deployed to Salesforce for internal users onto a Salesforce Lightning page. It can be deployed for external users, customers, and partners on a Salesforce community site. And it can also be deployed completely outside of Salesforce. Let's say you have a custom mobile app that's not Salesforce, or a third-party website that's not Salesforce. You can deploy your OmniScript there via OmniOut. And this is often used by customers to deploy to Adobe Experience Manager, to a third-party external mobile app. So this is something really cool that is not available with Flow, because Lightning Out is beta as of today. And there will be a special deep dive section into all of these different modules and Omni Out as well. Next, we have FlexCard. So FlexCards are a visual way of building UIs that are declarative and no code. So if we look at this example on the right-hand side, this is an example of the FlexCard designer. Here we have an asset being shown. We have a picture of the asset. We have some data coming in based on the name, color, some other information about that asset. Again, this is a very visual drag and drop designer, UI friendly, or sorry, admin friendly to build. There are different UI elements that you can drag and drop here. And then it's all driven by data that's either coming from Salesforce or another system. And that data is configured via a data source. So in this case, we're probably showing an asset record from within Salesforce that could be driven by a DataRaptor. But it also could be driven by, maybe we want to fetch asset data from Salesforce and maybe from our legacy system. Then we could have our data source configured as an integration procedure, which will fetch data from Salesforce and the legacy system. So very powerful in terms of how you can display data that, without OmniStudio, you would have to build a custom LWC and use code to accomplish this sort of thing. And finally, these OmniScripts and FlexCards are ultimately compiled to a LWC so that you can embed them into your own custom LWCs. You can embed them into a landing page, Salesforce community site, very flexible to use where you want and when you want. Then we have DataRaptors and integration procedures. So let's start with DataRaptors. DataRaptors have three flavors. There's extract, transform, and load. Extract helps us pull data from Salesforce from potentially one or many objects. For example, if we want to pull an order, the order items, and maybe the promotional information behind that order, we can pull all of that via one DataRaptor extract into a JSON, and then use that JSON potentially as a payload for an integration or whatever we like. There's also a transform. This will allow us to transform JSON to XML or vice versa. This will allow us to change one JSON payload into another JSON payload. And there's finally DataRaptor load, which lets us take some JSON payload and then load it into one or multiple Salesforce objects. So DataRaptor is basically a way of interacting with data, whether that's coming from Salesforce or going into Salesforce. And then there are integration procedures. So integration procedures are, you can think of them as a declarative analog to Apex, where you can define some business logic, define different conditions, define different loops, invoke other Apex, other integration procedures, all of that from your integration procedure. And then that integration procedure itself can be used in these other OmniStudio components. It can be invoked via REST API directly. It can be invoked via another integration procedure or Apex class. So a lot of flexibility there. And then this supports different caching for better performance. And it supports bulk as well. You can have a bulk job or a batch job that will execute an integration procedure on a big set of data. So this covers basically the backend components to OmniStudio. Then we have the interaction console. So if we look at this, the screenshot here, this is an example of the service console for a call center rep. On the left here, we see some information about a customer that's calling in. We can see their customer story. This would be a FlexCard. We see some of their asset information. This could be another FlexCard. So this is how we take those UI components, the OmniScripts and FlexCards, and embed them within the consoles for our sales agents to be able to see all of the information they need related to a specific customer or whatever the use case is. And then also from here, the FlexCards can launch OmniScripts as well. So let's say from this asset, we need to modify some coverage. We can click on that button and that will launch an OmniScript passing the context of that asset. Then we have Omni Analytics. So within OmniScript and the other OmniStudio modules, these generate telemetry data where you can see, for example, if you have a multiple step OmniScript, you can see how many users are completing each step of that OmniScript. So maybe the first step, most users complete that. The second step, some users drop out. At the very end, maybe quite a few users drop out. You can see, what that drop is between each step. You can see on average how long are those steps taking, and based on that information, maybe you can see, do we really need this step? It's causing a lot of customers to drop out. Maybe we can remove it, and that would prevent that customer fallout. Or maybe you're seeing that there's really poor performance on some step. We need to investigate that, see whether the performance is bad, fix it so that we can have a great customer experience. So quite a lot of data generated there that you can do analytics on to improve. Then we have Industry DX or IDX. There are kind of two flavors of this. This was formerly called Vlocity DX. It's now Industry DX. There's the UI version, which is Workbench, and the command line version, which is IDX CLI. Basically, these allow you to select the different OmniStudio components, and this also covers some of the industry cloud components as well. So you can select, for example, OmniScript. It would know that your OmniScript has these dependent FlexCards, integration procedures, DataRaptors, etc. You can extract all of that in JSON format, which you can then check into your favorite source code repository. You can do that through the UI tool, so it's all visual and admin friendly, or you can do that through the command line, so you can automate all of this and automate the extraction and deployment of the different components between your source repository, your sandboxes, and production. So lots of flexibility there. And then Project Explorer. So let's say that we built an application that allows us to manage the whole sales process for our customer. That application involves many involves many OmniScripts, FlexCards, integration procedures. Maybe even there's custom objects and fields, etc. You can group all of that together into what's called a project. So that can involve both OmniStudio, Industry Cloud, and Salesforce metadata. Group all of that together in a project, and then be able to use that as an input for IDX that would then be able to deploy that whole project together. And one thing I forgot to mention for IDX, it does support Salesforce metadata as well. So not only your OmniStudio and Industry Cloud components, but you can also deploy your Apex classes, custom fields, etc. So you can think of a project as a way to kind of group all of this stuff together, and then you feed that into IDX to then deploy it. So coming back to this example, let's go through it again. So, we have our customer coming in through our digital channel, the Salesforce community site. We walk them through an OmniScript that goes through 5 different steps where we check the availability. That availability check invokes an integration procedure, which invokes a DataRaptor to build the JSON payload to talk to our availability system, check is there service available for this address and what kind of service. We have some conditional logic in our OmniScript to say, okay, if there's no service available, we show them an error saying, sorry, there's no service available. Please check back in a few months. If there's service available, then we show what are the different options available. And that would be coming from the pricing for those services would be coming from Communications Cloud CPQ, which is part of Salesforce, which would be invoked by another integration procedure. And we do kind of the same thing for the other business steps here. So hopefully this gives you a sense of how it all fits together. The OmniScript provides that UI, the guided process. FlexCards provide us user-friendly ways of, for example, viewing the different services that are available, integration procedures and DataRaptors to talk to the different systems, whether it's Salesforce or other downstream systems. So that was pretty much it. Just to really quickly touch on enablement resources, if you're interested. There are 2 OmniStudio certificates, OmniStudio Developer and Consultant. Check out the exam guides and corresponding Trailhead modules there. What I would recommend is definitely go through the Trailhead, go through the exam guides. do as much hands-on as you can. You can watch this series as well. You can pass this with just theoretical knowledge, but I strongly recommend hands-on for it to stick better in your mind and better prepare you for your first OmniStudio project as well. Outside of OmniStudio, there's also an industry CPQ developer. The content for this is currently available on Vlocity University. The exam for this is on Salesforce Web Assessor. There is another Apex Hours session focused on industry CPQ. We'll link to that in the description. And then for industries, order management, and other former Vlocity certifications, those are still available on Vlocity University. I believe eventually they'll be migrated to Trailhead, but that's not available today. So if you're interested in these, look at Vlocity University, and the exams are through the Vlocity Web Assessor. And then I mentioned Vlocity University and Vlocity Success Community. You can access both of these through this link if you're a Salesforce customer, partner, or employee. I'll have that link in the description. You can just fill it out with your contact information, your work email, and you'll be provisioned access within a few days. So you can go through all of the content. Vlocity University also has some hands-on exercises where you spin up an org and go through the hands-on exercises there. So do take advantage of that. All right, so that's what we had for today's session. So hopefully you got a good high-level understanding of what OmniStudio is. You at least can understand for OmniScript, for example, it's for building guided processes. You understand for integration procedures, this is kind of a declarative analog to Apex. You understand at that level, and hopefully this piqued your interest enough to deeper dive into the other topics that we'll cover in future sessions. So wish you best of luck on your OmniStudio learning journey, and I really hope that you'll enjoy this session, the series. Please stay tuned for the following sessions and look forward to all of the great feedback we see from the session. So happy learning, and thanks for listening. Have a good day.